Hello, we're in Malta today and I'd like to discuss some prints. And before we get onto these 4 prints I bought last week, I want to discuss the overall print situation. The problem with the print market for the collector, the unskilled collector, the unskilled dealer, the layman, is that the market is jargonised and there is a lot of technical jargon associated with the print market. So you have etchings, plate making, print making, block carving, screen printing, intaglio, maps, manuscripts, all sorts of dimensions, modern reproduction, lithograph, chromolithograph, and wove paper, fibrous paper, kaolin impregnated shiny paper. You've got limited editions. You've got some prints which are finished by hand, for example, tinted by hand. You see many maps, for example, old maps which are printed in black and white and then gaps are coloured. And they've been making prints for hundreds of years, and they're making prints now. And it's a kaleidoscopic array of choice, and it's very confusing. And even a fairly well travelled dealer will still come up against things they haven't seen before, and there seems at the moment to be quite a divide between contemporary art and some of the older art, second-hand art, and I think that many of the collectors of the contemporary art dislike the old art and frown upon it, and I think that many of the contemporary art collectors feel superior because they have up-to-date art, and I can understand that, but the problem with that is you're discounting hundreds of years of really nice stuff, whether it be a woodblock from the 1930s, whether it be a mid-century authentic copy of a nice painting, to this sort of stuff, whether it's figurative or literal or semi-literal. So you have this first divide, which is, as I say, the stuff you see in the trendy shops and on the internet and the flashy sales, and the stuff that the stuff I collect and buy, stuff my father bought, my grandfather bought, the churches bought, the Georgians bought, the Victorians bought, etc., etc. So there's this divide, and it is in my view, a divisive divide. And I don't know many collectors of modern art who like the old stuff. It's certainly marketed very separate. And if you go to a gallery selling contemporary art, there is no trace of antique stuff. It is almost something that they can't partake in. The other thing about prints, so that's one division. The other division is this other type of print, which doesn't perhaps encompass maps so much, and manuscripts, and the early intaglios, the early etchings and engravings. It's more about this modern type of reproduction. You have this situation where you've got furnishings prints, which are now, I would say, are mainly made in the Far East. Mainly, will often have a shiny paper. This is the kaolin. This is the clay impregnation. It's porcelain. They put porcelain into the pulp to make it shiny. It uses this ink. You have the exaggerated margins, which came in the 80s with the large titles and the big limited edition numbers and the big artists' signatures. And the artist signatures on prints often are not the ones you get on the painting. So you have this style of presentation. You have the style of paper. You have the modern frames. You have posters. You have prints. They're really the same thing. You have photographic prints. You have monochrome style prints or limited colour prints and limited edition prints. And I don't like limited editions if they go over 250. I think it's awful. It's not a limited edition if there's 1,000 or 6,000. So you've got to look at the whole printed world, and the printed world arises from originals and arises from handwritten manuscripts, and it is an evolution which is still going on now. And the printed matter evolution is now going into NFTs, which comprise of static visual effects and moving visual effects, and NFTs can be figural or man-made or photographs combined. So it's really difficult stuff. So I'm not into contemporary art. all. I like the stuff my father used to like, which is normal art. It's a very weak expression, but that's what it is to me, normal art. Now this is normal art, and when my father started doing this, this hadn't been produced. So he was someone who saw the tail end of the Victorian and early 20th century stuff, and saw the advent of this sort of stuff, which in the 60s and 70s was new. And to me, I'm thinking, well, this is really old stuff. And I'm looking at the tail end of this stuff, and looking at the advent of the NFTs and the stuff from Hearst and stuff from Banksy. So it's an ever replenishing pool of stock. You have the stuff which is rare, which is all gone into museums and collections, and you have this top up of new production, and there's a stock, floating stock, and there's no less stock around than there was 50 years ago. In fact, there's more stuff than there was. So I don't know anything about these 4 prints at all, and that might seem a strange comment. So my essay today, or my video today, if you want, is not about this artist who is called Pawl Carbonaro. It's about how I approach these prints. And I approach the prints on the basis of, well, I make money out of them. I have enough stuff in my home to look at. I don't need any more stuff to look at. So the stuff I'm buying is stuff to sell. So Pawl Carbonaro, the first comment about Pawl Carbonaro is the Paul is spelt with a W. So that's alien to an Englishman, it's alien to an English writer, alien to an English speaker in a way. And I've noticed that his works are not usually signed with a P or a Paul, it's usually just Carbonaro. And I know this in Malta is very popular because one of the Sarah's buying other types of picture, which I'm more interested in. There's often representation by Carbonaro, and I've been looking at his pictures because they achieve good prices, and they're consistent and well liked, and they're often large oil paintings using fairly blocky abstract forms to simulate or represent the Maltese landscape. And the Maltese landscape to me is hills and fields, walls and buildings. Buildings being fairly square, small windows, hut-like buildings. Of course, you have the churches too. And that's a simplification, but in my mind, when I think of Malta, and I think of how people represent it, especially the modern artists, they all seem to follow this pedigree because they're representing this blockiness. So here you have, for example, a print by Carbonaro. Now, this one does not represent Malta, it represents Puglia. Puglia is not too dissimilar from Malta. It has a yellow limestone and it is aesthetically similar. So what he's got here is, it's something like Pictura di Champa. I think that's Picture of Fields. Campagna in Puglia, countryside in Puglia, and it's signed Carbonaro. I think that's what it says, I don't know. So this is a print, and it has 2 colours. It has brown of varying intensities, and it has the colour of the paper. It has pencil lines, pencil annotations and titles. The mount is an old mount now. It's foxed, but it's the original mount to the print, in my view, contemporary, and I suggest that the frame is contemporary. I don't know how old it is, I haven't spent any time looking them up. I suggest this is 1980, 1975. There's another one, this one has a number, 19 of 25. It's a very nice thing to see, a low limited edition number. This one says something to the effect of a place in Puglia, I think. Again, Carbonaro, similar sort of thing. It is a blocky, figurative version, or a figurative depiction of Puglia. So I think there are stone buildings, I think there are cornfields, I think there are ploughed fields, I think there are buildings, I think there are hillsides. That is as far as I've got. But this suits the code in Malta, in my view. You won't get foxing on a mount if it's gone through a shop. If you get a Bond Street, they wouldn't put it in the shop with foxing on, they wouldn't dare to. But I don't want to take that off, that foxing or that mount. I think it means that the item has integrity. And this is the word you have to look for when you're buying prints. Is that nicer in a new frame with a white plain or a red or a brand new mount just being made? No, it's not. The market might say it's worth more, or the home furnisher might say it's worth more, but it's worth less. This is part of the journey, and I think it should be left. with the mount has even deterioration. The foxing is even. I don't think it needs changing. That's my view. So I don't know a lot about, well, I don't know anything about Carbonaro except what everyone else can see on the internet. He's alive still and very popular, and his work sells for good prices. This one I bought as well. The thing about this one here is you have a black sky. Now, when you look at it, no one's thinking it's night time. This is the skill, you see, because it's got daylight on the front of the church. There's a church bell tower, a small window. You have a noughts and crosses effect, manner of outline, and the lines go beyond the actual end of the lines. So it's skillful, cross-hatching. The black sky, it's a blue sky, but it's black. And 29 and 40, Carbonaro, a little bit small to be quite frank, but an old mount, an old frame. And I think that was all done together when it was printed. Very hard to make these limited edition prints, it's very expensive. And I think if there were 40, it has an integrity. The last one I bought last week was this one. This is the most interesting picture. Why is it interesting? Well, it's got a very interesting frame. Framed by Bruno, I don't know who he is. So this frame is perspex, sorry, the front is perspex. It is cracked on this corner. It's cracked here, it's cracked here. There was a clip missing, but you have a distinctive frame. And in its day, that was a very, very smart frame. I'm thinking 1975. Water damage, foxing, but the print itself is immaculate. And I'm told that this is a self-portrait of Pawl Carbonaro, and it is, I suggest, was a gift to someone he knew. It says, I think, something to the effect, with affection and sympathy, with my compliments, Pawl Carbonaro, and that's signed with the Pawl. I've had a very quick look on the internet, and I haven't found one yet with the Pawl, whether it's a print or an oil, so I might be wrong, might be below to them, but I haven't seen one. None on the market at the moment have the Pawl. So I think that's interesting. I think the frame is interesting. I think I will actually, if I can't sell it, when I sort of recycle it to sell it in a different way, I will have another piece of perspex made, and I will have one of these clips made to fit, and perhaps attends to the water damage, but it doesn't need it in my view. I mean, it would look good on a different coloured mount, but first time around, I will try and sell that as it is. Or keep it as it is. So when you're buying these prints, look for integrity. Maps are difficult. Maps are often taken from books. Maps are always printed in black and white and coloured afterwards. Most are coloured when they're framed. Most are coloured when the map books were ripped up. In the 50s, I'm thinking, in the last century, the dealers would buy a book of maps, cut up the book, frame them, colour them, and you see mountains of prints are from books and folios, and mountains have late painting. And they were doing it now in England. They've run out of the castle prints and the prints of the classical churches and the classical elevations of rustic homes. They've run out of the maps, the antique maps. They've run out of the deeds on parchment and vellum with the seals. So now they're cutting up magazines, Edwardian magazines, and getting little pictures this size. Again, with the glossiness, the clay and colour, they're putting them into frames. They are cutting up Victor Passmore catalogues, and you have a Victor Passmore print with a crease down the middle with 4 staple holes, with a dedication which is from a book. And it will be a print of a limited edition, but the book version won't be a limited edition. So you have some real challenges. You have this book cutting, which confuses the market further. So when you're buying your prints, just consider the wide variety that's available. And the reason I bought these ones is I believe that they're very undervalued. The oils from this artist fetch high prices, and I believe the demand for this artist will rise. And I think the demand for limited edition prints of a small volume will accelerate really highly. The pair, I think, are particularly undervalued. They're large, they are a pair, they suit the aesthetics of Malta, and they're very much of the time. And these browns have been fashionable for 30 or 40 years, but I think the time will come when these browns will come in. So there's a lot to discuss. I hope I've given you some ideas. I'm trying to show you why I bought them, and I'm trying to show you how I make my selections. The most interesting print here is this one here. This is something that will or can in Malta, in the right circles, lead to quite an interesting discussion. That one's more of something just to glance at. Those as a furnishings piece are really spectacular. But I think that in a world where so many prints are so totally boring and pointless and futile, for example, the red Ferraris and the Marilyn Monroes, I mean, there are so many of them, they're so meaningless, that I think that if you can find something with integrity, with a story, with a journey, and a meaning, I think that you're onto a good thing. I hope I've been helpful. Bye-bye.